This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada. In the studio again today is Steve Gaskell. Steve is principal for product security at Bentley, Nevada, and as he explained last time, a lot of that focus, even though it's across the whole portfolio, is geared towards hardware, incident reports, dispositioning, stuff from the field, and services, whereas the visit we had with James McDuffie previously, James very focused on the software side of the house. Now, Steve, in the last episode, we just began to touch on 62443. And you confirm that, yeah, that's the standard that customers are generally citing the most when it comes to cybersecurity. And you talked about kind of the whole life cycle of the product, not just embedding secure features in the hardware, but then customers maintaining that cybersecurity over time with patches and I think the term you used was proper hygiene.
Yes, good cybersecurity hygiene is key.
Yeah. In terms of the process that gets used for certifying a product, a lot of people are familiar with hazardous area locations. Approval process for cybersecurity, has that matured over? It's like I try to put myself in the shoes of somebody testing something for vulnerabilities, and it seems like that's a pretty tall order of how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so there's two aspects, right? So there's the certification against the 62443 standard. 4-2 was the one we selected. Mm-hmm. And that will be a fairly lengthy exercise of explaining the features we've built into Orbit 60 mm-hmm. and how they meet the exact requirement in the standard. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a lot of technical justifications. It's probably a process of going back with a certification agency. They'll have questions to our answers, mm-hmm. and it'll be an iterative process. Yeah. So that can be quite time consuming. It'll take a little bit of time, but that's how we'll get Orbit 60 certified to mm-hmm. 62443. The other piece you touched on was kind of the testing of the product itself, the penetration testing. Right. That's where you turn the product over to a completely independent resource that wasn't involved with the development of the product.
Yes.
And let them use their skills and talents as hackers. Yeah. White hat hackers, we'll say. Yep. The good guys. And they'll come up. Each company you use has different techniques, different skill sets, different approaches. Mm-hmm. But that's what you want to expose your product to. So.
And you don't necessarily know what they're going to do in advance. I mean, that's the whole idea. A hacker's not going to tell you in advance, this is the door I'm going to try to pry open.
Exactly. We may do it in phases, though. We may do it more as an initial black box test, which means we tell them nothing. Just mm-hmm, here's mm-hmm, how you power it up. Mm-hmm. Here's your Ethernet ports. Mm-hmm. Try and break into the mm-hmm. device. And if they don't have any success, maybe give them a couple of clues. Give them maybe an accurate login credentials that they can use, and then see what they can do from there. Make sure they can't go from a standard user to a system admin, for example.
Right.
The product.
Or here's the product manual. There might be some things you can see in there that would give you an idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting because I just kind of, imagine the invading army storming the walls, and seeing how secure are those walls.
Yes. Yep. And it's, we've done one test already. We got very good results from that test. Mm-hmm. But I think anybody in the security world knows that was just on that one specific test. There's evolving threats, there's evolving techniques. So it's something you've always got to be testing release after release to make sure the new technique didn't come out or we didn't build in a bug that we didn't intend to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in some of the conversations I've had on security, you can build these industrially hardened devices that are highly secure and then find out that a vulnerability was some piece of social engineering that happened at the water cooler or the coffee pot.
Yes. Yeah. There's just so many attack vectors present today that you have to be so careful.
Yeah. So. Now, one of the things James had mentioned was that the plans were to certify this to kind of the highest or most robust level in the thought that other things in the plant might be less secure and people would be more prone to go after those. So it's almost like putting up the sign that says, not only do I have an alarm system, I have a Rottweiler.
Exactly, yes.
And maybe they'll pick a different house.
Right. We really did try and stretch ourselves on the security level. We went to SL4, which is the highest level in the standard. Now, it's not that we can meet that level for every single requirement, but that was the goal we set
That's
for
the
ourselves.
stretch goal.
Yeah, to try and get there.
Yeah. Well, Steve, let's continue this conversation. It's fascinating. We're out of time for this episode, but we're going to have you right back, so stay where you are. This is Take 5 with Bentley, Nevada, a Baker Hughes business.